Hi there, Richard here. In the last video, I explained why I think that the phrase work-life balance can be unhelpful for a whole host of reasons. So you might find it useful to go back and have a look at that video before watching this one, because this time around, we're going to look at the concept of boundaries and how we can, with intention, with care, with meaning, manage those boundaries to avoid any unwelcome overspill from one role to another. So why might you be interested in learning more about how to manage your boundaries? Well, maybe you find yourself a little bit frustrated and annoyed in the evening looking at your email when you'd rather be with your family or with your friends. Maybe you automatically say yes to requests for your time and then later feel frustrated that you've agreed. Maybe you find that some of your passions, some of your pastimes, or some of your part-time educational focus are taken up with other responsibilities almost without you realizing. These are probably signs that it's a good time to pause and notice where your boundaries are, how you're managing them, and what you can do differently. In this video, I'm going to outline some principles, not rules, that you can use to help you notice these boundaries and manage them with intent. A good way to think about boundaries is that they encircle the roles that we occupy in life. And as I said last time, we all occupy many roles, and looking at life through the lens of roles can be much more useful than thinking of work versus life, as in work-life balance. So you might have a job, that's one role, but within that job, you might have plenty of roles in there. You might be a manager, you're someone else's direct report, you might be a technical specialist, you might have some roles around the social side of the business. Outside of the work domain, we have plenty of roles. So thinking about how we want to invest our time, our energy, and our attention into each of these roles is super important. So when we think about boundary management, it's about looking at the roles and making sure that we're able to spend the time and invest the energy that we want to in these roles. And also acknowledging that life can be a little bit unpredictable, a little bit hectic, and sometimes things do happen that mean one role will overspill into the other. And that's fine. We just need to acknowledge that that can happen. So flexibility is the watchword here. So the first thing I'd like to explore with you is the role of principles over rules. When we look at how we want to manage the different roles we have in life, it's useful to adopt principles over rules because principles have inbuilt flexibility. That means that as things change and as demands change in different roles, as life gets hectic and maybe a little bit overwhelming, we're able to bend with that and adapt to that. Rules don't have any flexibility, and if we apply rules to how we want to manage our roles, we then find those rules broken, and then there are consequences for the rules being broken, and often that's for us. We feel bad, we feel let down, we feel frustrated because our rules have been broken. If we have principles, that's in general, I would like it to be like this. In general, I would like to finish work at 5:30. In general, I would like to have some time for my exercise and my fitness. In general, I would like to carve out some time for my friends and family. Principles, much more flexible than rules. So the first thing is to notice, have you applied any rules to your boundary management? Maybe there's another way, a more flexible way that you could think about this. One of the common scenarios that we can face is the automatic yes in response to a request for our time and our effort. And then later on, once we've had a chance to consider the implications of saying yes, we can feel a little bit frustrated or angry with ourselves that once again, we're giving up something from another role in our life to something else, possibly work. Maybe you've noticed a tendency in yourself to say yes because saying no or anything else would be uncomfortable. In that moment, what we're doing is allowing ourselves to focus on the discomfort of saying no. And in order to avoid that discomfort, we say yes. Now I'm simplifying things in order to illustrate that there's another way that we can deal with these requests. We can use our values, these aspects of ourselves, these enduring qualities that we want to live by, these principles that we want to bring to life. So rather than saying yes because no might be uncomfortable, we can say not today because it's really important that I ... And this is about applying your values. This is about realizing, for example, that one of your values is family focus, and you don't want to give up that family focus for a last minute request. One of your values might be ongoing learning, and you don't want to miss your evening class because of this last minute request. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a fairly simple relationship. We can either avoid the discomfort, or we can wade through that temporary, momentary discomfort and stick to our values. Now, I'm going to do a future video all about values because that really is infused in the work that I do with my clients. But for now, let's just make the distinction between values and goals. Goals can be attained. We work towards them, we achieve them, we tick the box, and they're done. Values are ongoing. We don't tick the box that says, I've been compassionate enough, I've been professional enough. So they give us a steer, a sense of direction. An image we commonly use is that of the compass. Our values act as an inner compass, giving us a sense of direction. And that is an enduring sense of direction, much more important and meaningful to us than a blip of discomfort, a moment of awkwardness, or just a little bit of saying no is. That's far less important than applying our values in action. The next most important thing is comparison. Now, I talk about this a lot because as humans, we compare all the time. Compare ourselves to other people, compare what we have to what other people have, compare our career journey to other people, and we compare ourselves, whether we know it or not, to what we see on screen, whether that's TV, the movies, or social media. When it comes to managing our boundaries, that's a bit of a pitfall because all we're seeing is the result of people's decisions. We're not seeing their thoughts, imagination, fears, history, all of that internal stuff. We're just seeing the results of that. And of course, we're well aware of our thoughts, our fears, our worries, our goals, our passions. So when it comes to managing boundaries and doing that with intent, it's about plowing your own furrow, following your own journey and avoiding those comparisons. Now, there's one exception to that maybe, which is about asking people who seem to be doing a really good job of managing their boundaries. Not simply copying the bit we can see, but talking to them. How do you manage that? What goes on for you? What's important to you? How do you have these conversations? How have you set this up for yourself? And that can be a really good way to see what other people are doing. Now, it might not work for you, but it can provide a really good insight into what other people are doing, maybe give you some hints and tips. Now, I wouldn't be a great psychologist if I didn't mention the role of our thinking when it comes to these decisions and these activities. Simply put, I'd recommend that you watch your thinking. What's popping up in your mind before you make these decisions when you're talking to yourself? If we think of the mind as an engine that's just working 24/7 and churning out thoughts and images and memories for us to consume, we can then see ourselves as a choosy consumer, someone who wants some of those thoughts and doesn't want to respond to the others. Just because you have a worry, just because you have self-doubt, just because you wonder, should I be doing what they're doing, it doesn't mean you need to act on that. A thought is just a thought. And now I know that sounds really simple, and it's really difficult at the same time. But if you remember, they're just thoughts. They're not instructions, they're not rules to follow, they're not musts. And on that note, watch out for those thoughts that sound like, I need to, I must, I should, because they're not always true. I should be available to these clients 24/7. I must have a look at my email. I need to, etc. Very demanding. And it can lead us from the path of our values-directed boundary management. Simply put, it can leave us at the mercy of temporary, unhelpful thoughts and far, far away from the kind of values-led life that we ideally want. Now, what's really important here is that we're not trying to get rid of these thoughts or suppress them. That takes a lot of energy, and as you'll probably know, thoughts pop back up like as if we've been keeping a beach ball under water. It takes a lot of energy to not think about something. It takes a lot of time to replace those thoughts with something else. And of course, that doesn't work. Instead, what we're letting happen to these thoughts is just they're passing by. We're not going to answer. We're not going to argue with them. We're not going to debate. We're not going to engage in any kind of struggle. We're just going to let them go while we focus on what's important to do, the helpful action in the moment. So when we get asked to stay late at work when we weren't expecting it, we can acknowledge the thoughts that pop up about should, need, must, but actually tap into what's really meaningful and important to us, which is our values. As with everything else that we do, honesty is really important here. So you may clarify what's important to you, your values, and use them to guide or want to guide your behavior. You may have some general principles for how you want to spend your time and energy and your focus in the different roles. And you might be doing a great job of looking straight ahead and not focusing on what others are doing. However, we might start to tell ourselves stories about why just this once is okay to say yes, or just this once is okay to work late, and so on and so on. So we need to be honest whether we are actually deciding, yes, it's okay for these activities to overspill and take away from this role, or whether we're just avoiding the discomfort of saying, no, not today, or I'm afraid I can't do that, or actually the discomfort of not getting involved in one thing because something else really does require our time and attention. So with all of those tools at our disposal, we still need to remember to spot the stories we tell ourselves. And how can we spot these stories? Well, if like me, and I think the rest of humanity, you've ever procrastinated, then you'll know that we tell ourselves stories in order to push tasks into the future, possibly as far into the future as we can. Those stories like, it'll be better if I start tomorrow, I'm always better with a fresh start, or I don't need to start this till Friday. They're the stories I'm talking about. We need to watch out for the patterns. So one of the things that you can do to make this really easy for yourself is start right now with a pen and a piece of paper. I know it's low tech, but it's very powerful because you can't multitask with a piece of paper, and start writing out the roles that you occupy. This is your starting point. These are the roles, these are the responsibilities, and maybe those roles also have goals. At work, you've got roles and plenty of responsibilities, I'm quite sure. Now, maybe you're engaging in part-time education. You want to get another qualification. Maybe you're just doing it for the love of learning a language or handicraft. The point here is you've got a goal involved there. So that keeps it important. That should keep it on your radar. So having a note of what's important to you, having a note of these roles will help them avoid slipping off the edge of the table, will avoid one role, possibly work, but it could be something else like a caring responsibility taking over all of the roles. And remember that it's going to shift and slide and be very dynamic and full of change rather than rigid rules that we must stick to. I need, I must, I can, I can't. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this brief video. I hope you found it thought-provoking, and maybe you're already thinking about some small changes you might want to make. That sounds great to me. If you have enjoyed it, consider subscribing to the channel for more content. You'll be notified when new videos go up. And of course, if you've liked it, please like it. It helps get it in front of more viewers. What I'd also ask is that if you have thought it's genuinely worthwhile, consider sharing it with someone in your life who's also struggling with multiple roles, multiple goals, lots of boundary management challenges. You might be doing them a favor. In any event, thank you for watching.